I'm here with my client Gayle, who came on board for one-to-one coaching about 4 months ago now. And Gayle has a really interesting story. So we're going to have a chat about her experiences so far in being part of the Strong Collective. So thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome. Pleasure.
I can't believe actually it's been 4 months. It's really flown by.
It's really flown by, which, if anything, I think is also a testament to, like, if you get involved in training and it aligns with what you want to do, and you are being consistent with it, it's like it's not a chore. It's something you're actually enjoying doing, so it just flies by.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I love what said there about it kind of aligning with your values and the goals that you want to work towards. So we'll definitely talk more about that. If you were to review what you've learned so far through this process and kind of write your own success story, what kind of things would it say?
Oh wow. At the risk of sounding really cliche, I have absolutely learned so much. I can't believe how much knowledge has been packed in like the last, like, because what did we say, 4 months? Because, like, you think you know stuff, and as you learn more information about what's actually fueling you, how the body works, you come to realize that some of the things that you thought you knew were actually just your own perceptions and your own ideas about those sorts of things. So, for example, years ago, I used to be someone who was always overtraining, and it's taken me like the last year or so to realize how bad the overtraining was, you know. So workouts weren't good enough unless you were completely beasting yourself and you had to be feeling like you were going to collapse. Otherwise you hadn't put enough effort in. So unless you were seeing spots, you'd done rubbish. And that being then tied to some, for what for me was an unhealthy way of thinking with relationships around food and training and things like that. So it was like, if you want to eat such and such, you have to earn it. You can't have that now because you didn't beast yourself this morning, and things like that. So it became apparent, and especially when I first started with you, I remember the first time we were looking at upping the calories, because I did a food diary for you for a little while, and do you know what I genuinely thought, she's going to go, why are you eating so much? You've got all this, you know, rubbish and the thing. And when it came back, I'm like, yeah, you're really under fueling what it is you actually do. So it was like, oh, and then we upped it, and I was like, initially really wobbly about it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can eat that much food. That sounds like way too much. But obviously as time has gone on, it wasn't. It's fueled me. It's allowed me to do the things that I want to do, from the lifting and the running. But not only has it allowed me to do it, it's actually improved it as well. I definitely noticed a significant difference just from the first few weeks of actually changing that way of eating. And for the first few weeks it was difficult to match that way of eating to the way I was still thinking. But if you, and I think this is something that I think a lot of people need to learn, but not because they're wrong or anything like that, but it'll be really helpful to them. When there's a process that's proven, you've got to trust it. You've got to trust that process, because a lot of the behaviors or the ways of thinking about relationships with food and training I had been from all of the things you get fed about smaller is better, and someone being as tall as I am, I'm a 6 foot woman, which isn't really common. It was always highlighted to me that I was bigger anyway, you know. So it's like, oh, look at the size on you, and things that aren't so nice. So it was always that thing of, oh well, if I'm smaller, let's be smaller. And what's the go-to for all that? How much you're eating. You know, how much you're eating, how much you exercising, make your body smaller, be quieter, don't speak up, don't show out, you know, all of those sorts of things. So the knowledge over trusting processes and watching how they give results, and giving myself enough rest, noticing my energy levels changing, so for the better, and absolutely 100% it improved my running performance. And originally, I think that's why I came to you as well, because I'm more about the long distances. I've never been a speedy person. I don't like sprint and like feel like my lungs are going to fall out. I prefer to like just go for longer distances. And I think it was like stamina and endurance I was listing of the things that I wanted. And it's been a beautiful eye opener of how much that has changed, in that I don't tire as quickly. I feel like I've got more in the tank even when I'm done, you know. So it's noticing those things and those misconceptions about, or if you're a woman who lifts, you're going to get bulky. You know, it's like, oh, you'll be massive. No, it's not the case. And even if it were, so if your own goal was to gain muscle mass, what is actually wrong with that? Because that's just strength. So it comes back to that thing of be small, don't take up much space. So yeah, the behavior change and the way I view certain things has changed massively over the last 4 months.
And we've had a lot of conversations about some of these, I tend to call them stories that we tell ourselves, but also we inherit through the experiences we've had throughout childhood, developing as women. It's interesting you're touching on some of these. Why shouldn't we want to get bigger? What's wrong with that?
Yeah. And it's that thing of like, I don't know, I don't know whether it's a patriarchal thing or a general society thing about women needing to be a certain way and to be, you know, quiet or petite and be like, you know, little dainty dolls or whatever, because we're so fragile and all of those sorts of things. And I don't know whether we just absorb it from a really young age, you know, or whether it's as we get older we're absorbing things, that like attitudes we're getting if we've got the wrong people around us, you know. And because you can take on, if you've got a lot of toxic people around or negative people around, it's difficult not to absorb some of what they're saying or behaving like, if that's around you in your common everyday way of being. And I think that's something else as well about when you're engaged in a really good community, whether it's like your running community, your lifting community, because everyone there is like celebrating each other's achievements of whatever they are. It's that thing of, actually, this is how it's supposed to be. People are not supposed to be saying to you, oh, you've put a bit of weight on. Or the one I don't like so much at all, when they go, oh, you've lost weight. Because it's like, you don't know why that person's lost weight, so shut up. You know, it might not have been something they wanted as well.
Yeah, it's really hard. People spend way too much time observing other people's physical appearance, commenting on other people's physical appearance. And I just always think not only is it really negative and can be harmful for the people on the other end of it, but it's such a waste of energy that could be actually put into developing yourself in the way that, you know, you have been, well, doing for many years, but, you know, dialing up over the last few months. And it was interesting what you said about having to trust the process. And, you know, we've definitely had some wobbles along the way, which is completely normal with something like this. And I think particularly around eating more food, and like you say, where, and not necessarily as a female, but anybody feeling this pressure that, you know, somehow success equates with restriction, which is just a completely bizarre concept. Could you just talk a bit more about, you know, how did you embrace that, actually consuming more? You thought I was going to come in and say you should eat less, and I said the opposite. How did that feel?
I genuinely thought, and it goes to show how sometimes our perceptions can be completely different from what the reality of the situation is, you know. And I know it's like something that lots of people say, like, we're our own worst critics, but we are, you know, we're the first to spot what we perceive to be a flaw or what we perceive to be something that's negative about ourselves. And 9 times out of 10, other people haven't even noticed it at all. They're just like, what are you talking about? And for me, it was that thing of like, you know, like, oh, I'll let him know how much I'm eating, because even if like I felt cringy, I've always been one for like, just tell her what you ate, or tell her what you lifted, or tell her if you were struggling with something, because otherwise you're not going to get the full benefit. It's like no input, no output. If you don't, you're not going to get the full benefit unless you're open and transparent about what's going on, because otherwise how can you do your job? You know, if you're being fed nonsense, then you can't do your job in supporting me, you know. And I would like supply those calories. I'd be like, oh, she'll come back now and say, I really think that's quite a lot of junk that must be going in there again. And when it was the opposite, I was like, no, I thought that can't be right. That sounds like way too much when you said about the calories. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And when I first started, and I was like, well, she said it, trust the process, try it. And do you remember the first couple of weeks, it was like, I can't eat this much food. I'm really full. I can't do any more. And I wasn't hitting the targets because I was just feeling so full. So then it was about learning about the density of foods, and, you know, so it's like to spread it out, and things that make you feel fuller or less full, so you can still get the nutrients that you need from them. So the whole thing has been a learning process within itself. But I think what is really good for reinforcing learning new behaviors, and the reason why I say learning new behaviors is because, without getting too worky, because for those who don't know, I assess behavior for a living in learning disabilities. You can't make someone unlearn a behavior. You can't eradicate a way of thinking. You can't eradicate someone doing it, but you can support someone to learn new behaviors that are just as functionally equivalent. So they're going to do something different that gets them results that they want. And learning the new behavior was reinforced by seeing the results as well. So noticing the outcomes. And they did actually come on quite quickly, to be fair. It's like I was noticing the energy levels were changing. That was the first thing I noticed. I was nowhere near as tired as what I had been before, which all makes then total sense. And it's easy for me to say now, oh yes, that's what it was. But at the time, not realizing that underfueling and lots of physical exertion and life stuff, you know, it's like the effect of mental stress can be just as impactful as putting physical stress on your body for your energy. So underfueling for what I was doing, and of course sleep and hydration, once those things were being unpicked as we went along, and I was noticing that change in energy. And then as my running training was going on, because I was building up for doing a marathon for beginning of October, just noticing the complete shift in how the runs felt as well. Like much more in the tank while I was running, even when I was doing speed work. Faster recovery times when I was done as well. So for example, if I'd like done a 20 miler, I might be a bit sore the next day and take 2 days off and then get back to it. But I could do now like a 20 miler and the next day is totally fine. You know, I make sure I get a really good sleep. I've got all the carbs in throughout, you know, to make sure that, you know, everything is fueled properly. So that just reinforces everything about trusting the process. So for anyone who's starting out and they're like, oh, I don't know about this, completely normal feeling. Ride it out, because it will soon come round the other way.
I'm just smiling at you being recovered after a 20 miler the next day. Absolute machine. I love it. So what would you say you like or you enjoy most about the coaching?
I think for me, and I remember saying this to you in one of our check-ins before, because like something that we touch on the check-ins and the updates are things that we're feeling grateful for and wins of the week. And I remember one particular check-in where I said I was grateful for the feeling of connection, because I find that really motivates me and helps me feel encouraged and motivated and supported. So I've got that connection with people I run with, even when I run solo, because I'm part of that running community. But then what I said about yourself is that the training and the coaching is so person-centered and so individualized that even though you're not physically in the gym with me, I feel you're in the gym with me. You know? And it's like, what would Em do? If I haven't been able to do a certain load, it's like, right, what would Em do? She'd tell you to drop down, so just drop down. And then if I've like managed to like increase a load, or I've stayed at a load but managed to like bang in like an extra 5 or 6 reps that a few weeks ago I wouldn't have been able to do, it's like, oh, I'm going to tell Em about this, you know, that sort of thing. So it's that the training is really personal, and I think that's what it needs to be as well. I mean, I'm not knocking anyone who follows plans that they found online and things like that. I'm sure there's lots of really helpful ones out there, but for me personally, I think you're only going to get the best for what's for you when it's written for you and planned for you, and you've got someone monitoring you and checking that you're not under fueling and doing anything like that. But also it's that thing of being accountable, you know. So there is someone who you're saying, this is what I've done, or someone to challenge you along the lines of, so why do you feel that way about that particular thing? Let's unpick it, let's look at it, because it comes back to behaviors and mindset if it's to do with training and food and things like that. And I think that's what I've enjoyed the most. It's that the challenging causes reflection. That reflection makes you look at your own behavior and measure it against the values of what you actually want, rather than what you think other people think you need to be doing. And it just feels like, even though you're being coached, you've got all the autonomy. So that's what I really love about it. And of course I geek out and love all the knowledge bits that I learn as I go along as well. So
oh, I'm blushing now. It's awesome to hear, and particularly coming from somebody like yourself with the profession that you do. So thank you. I have one more question.
Okay.
How do you feel as a result of investing this time and effort and energy in yourself through the coaching process?
I feel that, and that's a good word, investing, because I was just about to say, I feel like I've made a long-term investment, because it's that sort of thing where I know that I've learned skills and you've equipped me with skills, and not just physical ones of getting your form right and things like that, but like the thinking patterns. I'm equipped with skills that not only can I take forward for the rest of like my health and fitness stuff, but I actually think they're transferable skills as well. I mean, I remember we were joking before, and I used to put posts up on Instagram for you where I was going, this is the running equivalent of 3 reps in reserve, like tempo runs, things like that. But like, it's all transferable, but including that transferable way of thinking. If like feeling you're having a wobble in your confidence, and it could be something in work, it could be in something with your friend and family connections, and the confidence for speaking out about something. Whenever you think, I couldn't do that, I could never do that, you can flip it back and go, well, when I started lifting or you know, I'm building my strength, I thought I'd never, here's a good example, I never thought I'd be doing 60 on my hip thrusts, when the first time I ever tried them, it was the bar by itself. And I was like, oh, this really hurts. So I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And now it's to the point where I even put things in the messages too, isn't it? Like, don't take don't take split squats out, don't take out the thrust, because I get that challenged way, because it's not like a sense of achievement sort of thing. That's there, but it's about building that belief in yourself. And I would literally say, this can sound so cheesy, love cheese. So cheesy, but like, my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. Because when you think about how much time is possibly wasted worrying about stuff and not being as gentle on yourself as you should, and being as critical and being too critical on yourself, it would have been nice if I'd had it before. But for all I know, maybe I wasn't in the right place then. I like to think these things come along when you're ready for them, so you engaging them properly. So you're consistent and you're not box ticking, you're showing up with intention to get stuff done because it's what you want to do, and not something because you think you should do it. You're doing it because you want to do it, and that I think is what gives you that intention when you show up at the gym, whatever day it is you've shown up. So you're not just gonna flump around the place and do some half-efforted lifts or whatnot. You're going to apply yourself and get it done and know you did a damn good job.
Yeah, it definitely got to be the right time. It's really funny you said that, because I remember having really similar reflections. I started having one-to-one coaching myself, which is really what inspired me to then go on to become a coach. And that was 3 years ago. And I remember very quickly in that process thinking, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I lift weights sooner?
Yeah.
Never mind even the coaching. But I'm like you, I like to focus on, okay, this is the here and now. What do I want? What do I want from the future? And how is this going to support me in a way that my future self will be thankful for it? So, and you're right, there needs to be a readiness. You need to have a state of readiness. You need to be at the right place in your life where, you want to put the focus on.
Yeah, I think it's got to be something that's completely on your terms, isn't it? I think if you're doing it because someone has guilted you into it or told you, oh, I really think you should do this, then you're not really doing it for you. So it's got to be something that you really, really want. And don't get me wrong, it's like, of course, there are some mornings I get up and I'm tired, and whether it's running or lifting, I'm like, oh, bloody hell. But like, you do it and you feel great. But 9 times out of 10, I'm getting up at the times I do because I want to go and do, because no one's got a gun to my head. No one can make me do it. So I'm doing it because I choose to. And I'm grateful that it's something that I get to do rather than I have to do. There's no enforcement in this. This is me invested in myself. And maybe the Gayle of 3 to 5 years ago wouldn't have done it, because maybe I would have written myself off going, oh, you won't be able to do it anyway. So because that's what my brain was like then. So maybe it's just a case of these things will come along when it's the right time for them to come along for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been an incredible, I still can't believe it's only 4 months, but it's for me, coaching is very much, it's a two-way process. And yes, you're here to learn, but I'm learning from you as well, and any other client that I work with. So I can just genuinely say it is an absolute pleasure. I love talking to you about this stuff, and thank you so much for taking time to come and have a chat.
More than happy to. Thank you.